Thank you for making it back to another episode of The Money Exchange. If you are new to The Money Exchange, I welcome you. This show is about money tips as well as entrepreneurship journeys. You hear from those that have great successes in overcoming where they were before in their personal finance, as well as how they prepared financially to become an entrepreneur. I'm so excited to have a guest on with me. His name is Curtis May. In a moment, I'll have Curtis introduce himself, but I want to make sure if you haven't already subscribed that you hit that subscribe button, or if you're following or have not followed on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcast, make sure you do that, because I am Patrina Dixon, your personal finance coach. I am the founder and CEO of It's My Money, which is my trademark brand. And I teach people how to earn additional money through affiliate marketing. So you'll see that affiliate marketing course down below. So make sure you check that out as well. With me, I have Curtis. Curtis, let the people know who you are.
Hey, good. Thanks for having me, Patrina. First of all, I'm honored to be here. And so my name is Curtis May. My nickname is a contrarian, so I may share a few things contrary about money, but basically I'm a financial educator. I'm the where I help people implement, and I'm the host of the Practical Wealth Show podcast. And one of the things that we teach is kind of wealth outside of Wall Street. I'm a married, father of three, and I got into financial services because I realized the NBA was not looking for 5'11" shooting guards.
I love it. So you brought in the NBA. I guess I'll just ask, are you happy with the most recent result?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. You either have somebody like really upset because they wanted the Celtics or
no. Well, look, that was 1985, so that was a long time ago. So now somebody said if you can't do something well enough to make a living at it, it becomes your hobby. And so, but I was lucky because I always tell my kids, my dad always told me you'll never make any money work for somebody else. So I never got that go get a good job talk, go to school, get education, get a good job. My dad told me you'll never make any money working for somebody else. So, my grandfather was self-employed. My family owned a supermarket growing up, and I'm from Philly, and we were in the tavern business. So I've always kind of been in business. So even, when I was in college, I thought you majored in business to go into business. It didn't even occur to me to get a job.
How about that? So that's an interesting perspective. I want to touch on that. So your dad said that working for somebody, you'll never make money. Because I've heard working for yourself, you'll never be rich. I've never heard never making money. So that's an interesting perspective. So you've been an entrepreneur the entire time. You've never worked for
I've had jobs. I always the longest I ever worked for somebody else was maybe 13 months since my 1985. And but it's a great book by Robert Allen called Creating Wealth. And I swear I read this there first, like, I don't know, almost 30 years ago. He says a job is a temporary inconvenience. Okay, to give to give you the money you needed to what I call financial apprenticeship. Yes. Right. And so Jim Rohn says wages make you a living, profits make you a fortune. Right. So I got up, and I always viewed myself in full time in my little insurance thing. I was in like this. I started out in this MLM meets insurance financial services business. Right. And I wasn't any good at it.
And is so that how you got started?
Yeah. Okay. I started in college. Did retail sales, and I always wanted somewhere where I could make money but have the potential to make more money, right? So on top of that, so I knew you had to sell something, even though by nature I'm an introvert, but I wasn't afraid of money, and I always wanted to do something where if I was good at it, I could make more money than you. Like if I was better than the average bear, then I was willing to do the work to be good, even if I was uncomfortable with it.
And so how did that move into, so you talked about MLMs and that you didn't like that, and that's multi-level marketing. How did you get into being a financial educator?
Okay. So actually I like MLM, and MLM. I do. Yeah. I started out with I don't want to name it, but the company I was, was multi-level meets financial services. So if you heard the term buy term investor difference, I was like a regional vice president with that company for 12 years.
Okay.
And but I started to realize is that teaching sells, right? So I didn't try to sell people as much. I fell into that. I got good at doing workshops, and I would really take an educational approach to really teaching people how money works. And that is, because my goal is to empower people to think, not to tell them what to think. So I find that if you will, I view that money's common sense. See, because typical financial advice tells you you're not smart enough, you don't have the temperament or the training to personally manage your own money. And I say 2 + 2 is 4. Okay. It is not that complicated. And if you understand some basic things, you can do it. And so I just my style was, because what I found out, I'm a nerd, right? So my superpower was I'm very, like, for me, I'm what's the word? Curator, right? So I read a lot, right? I can, it was nothing for me when I'm really curious about something to read a book a week, right? And so what I found though, is I could read it, chew on it a little while, and then draw it to you on a yellow pad, right? So I found that I was good at breaking it down and teaching people. So I'll be Rich Dad Poor Dad. And so the weekend I was Rich Dad Poor Dad, I was doing a training class. So I taught it 30 minutes on it the next morning. I had just finished it like that Friday night before. But Jim Rohn said, if you're going to get good at something, you've got to practice, study, and teach. So I do a financial call, weekly coaching call for our clients. And I said, listen, I'm not on here for my health. Like, I want y'all to, I want you all to, play rich. What's that game called? Cash flow. I want you to get the richest man in Babylon. I want you to try to teach it to somebody else. See, if you can't teach it, you don't understand it yet. And see, so you build a community from the bottom up, one family at a time, understanding how to take control of their personal economy. So, I'm teaching teachers to teach. Like, if you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, the whole title is Rich Dad Poor Dad, would wealthy people teach their kids that the poor and middle class don't. So if you don't know, you can't teach it. So, my mission is bigger than that.
And is that one of the 5 principles? Because I know our topic today is 5 principles of personal finance. But before we got into the principles, I just wanted them. So I feel like I just need to give them a little bit more grounding. So you said that you were in multi-level marketing for, I'm writing comments as you go, for 12 years. And then did you then become a financial educator, or
no, I was in
part of that?
Okay, yeah. So that was the bit. So during that time, I was insurance licensed, I was securities licensed, and I did mutual funds, 401k. So that was my business. Primarily, though, I implemented with clients, but the company was based on recruiting other people, and I started to not feel like you could be a part-time financial expert. And so I like the aspect of network and affiliate marketing, but I didn't like it in financial services. So I decided that I really like being a financial advisor. I really like being a financial educator. I like, more so. And I worked really good from a business perspective to get good at that. My biggest fear was giving people the wrong information, giving bad advice was my biggest fear. I agonize over stuff, and so I'm pretty good at it now. And it works. I'm doing all right. Our clients do well because it's not really product focused, it's more principles focused, which we'll get into the 5 principles. And I still like consult with other networkers. I show them how to use their business to create wealth, because the 4 asset classes that create wealth are business, that real estate, paper assets, and commodities. So I believe, like, for new people, I think they should do, like, to your course, network marketing, affiliate marketing, e-commerce, what is the fastest path to cash? Some people it's real estate, and whatever it is, you need to focus on generating cash flow, which is actually my 5th principle. So I do that. So now I wake up and I do workshops. We do the show. I'm working on some courses that we have rolling out. My wife has had me outline a book that might be out. It will be out by the fall.
So. How about that? Well, I'll slide this in. My husband and I own a book publishing company, but we can talk about that separately.
Okay.
So let's go into the 5 principles of personal finance. So let's start with number 1.
Okay, so the first principle. So let's take it back. Let's take one step back. So here's the 50,000-foot view. There's 2 schools of thought when it comes to personal finance. So there's the accumulation theory. So that's the buy and hold, dollar cost average, get out of debt, buy term investor difference, rule of 72, max out your 401k. And then what I started to realize, when you start studying rich people, for the right people, there is a completely opposite game going on. Okay. And so if you took a corporate finance course, and I've sat with people that manage like this guy, one of my insurance companies, that I had dinner with a guy that manages the $35 billion with a B, their fund, their money, right? They don't do any of that stuff they teach in personal finance. You know what they talk about? Velocity of money, cash flow, leverage. They don't talk about getting out of debt. They talk about getting in. There's good debt and bad debt. And they use where they teach term insurance. Rich people use permanent insurance strategies. So that's where that comes from. So I teach people the velocity method, the velocity of money. So now let's back up. What are the principles, right? So I teach principles that help families become and remain financially free. Now, these aren't my principles. I have no original thoughts. They're just, these are just, if you start studying money, you can discern them. So the first principle is saving. Okay. So Rile, the richest man in Babylon, part of all your earnings, yours to keep. So save what? Save 15% or more of your gross income. So if y'all want an action item, saving should be automatic and systematic. Let me define saving: safe, liquid, accessible, guaranteed. Because a lot of people say
it again.
Saving, safe, liquid, accessible, guaranteed. So when people say, like, my daughters are working, so they'll get the advertisements for the 401k for the job, and it says save for your retirement through your 401k. That's not saving, okay? Because there's risk associated with that, and it's not accessible, and it's darn sure not guaranteed. So, but people, they change the language so that it sounds safer, but it's not saving. So saving, I'm not saying, they're just separate things, okay? And everybody shouldn't be investing, but everybody should save, okay? So that's the first principle, right? And so
wait, you said everybody shouldn't be investing?
No.
All right, expound on that.
All right, so see how I like saying stuff like that. So if let's say you talk to a person, they're in debt, they don't have $1,000 in an account, but yet they want to put money into a Roth IRA, or they want to put money in Robinhood, should that person be investing at that point?
That's the question for me?
Yes.
I say that you can do all of them. So that's how I feel about it. I feel like because yes, so my answer is yes to that.
Okay. See, I would say no. Now, I would say if you don't have.
Now wait, hold on. Let me just finish my answer. What level of investing they should do could be very different. So for example, now there's the ability to purchase fractional shares of stock, right? Of companies, stocks and companies. So I think that people that are in debt, people that may not have $1,000 saved, which I encourage paying off debt. I encourage $1,000 save, having more than $1,000 in your savings. I encourage that. But I also encourage you to be diversified in what you do. So I'm not saying to invest something that you can't afford to invest, but I don't look at the affordability being because you have debt.
I don't mean debt. Okay.
Yeah, yes, so it's different. So I feel like that's because people always ask me, what percentage should I do in this, that, or the other? I think the percentages, the levels, I'll call it, that you invest, save, pay off the rate you pay off debt, etc. I think that all varies on individuals. Is personal. Personal finance is just that, personal. So at the levels of which you do things is not going to be the same as the next person, but not being able to do, let's just use the term investing, not be able to invest because of those factors. I'm just not on the same page.
Well, I'll give you my definition of investing, and I'll clear that up. So, but let's go back to saving. So people say, well, what should I invest in? I said, well, how much do you have saved? Oh, I got like $3,000. My answer would be nothing, because you don't have any money yet. Okay. So if you don't have 90 days of your income, or worst case, your expenses in cash, don't talk to me about investing, because you don't have any money you can afford to lose. You don't have any liquidity. And so most people see, the number one problem I see as I work with clients, I've been doing this 30 years, they don't have any money. They don't have access to capital. So the first thing I teach people is to capitalize, right? Because if think about this, listeners, if you came out your house and all 4 of your tires were slashed, for a lot of people, that would be a problem. They could not do that without whipping out some plastic, right? So they won't have any capital. So I want them to save, okay? Yeah. So that's the first principle. So my ultimate goal, this is principle 4, but one is the habit. So if you look at wealthy people, they work, earn, and save. So one of the things I'll ask people, and I won't expound on this too much, is I'll ask people, because they have a misconception about money. So I'll say, well, out of the Forbes 400, billionaires, how many of those people you think inherited their money? So most people I'll ask that to, if they haven't heard me on a show or something like that, they'll say, oh, half of them, or what do they call my Marxist little college students are like 80%, right? And I'll go, no, 8%. 8%. And so most wealth is first generation. What do? They work, they live within their means, they focus on expanding their means, they build businesses, and they buy real estate. Okay. That's where most people that if you're trying to be, because it's advice for the rich, is right for the middle class. And I told people you have to decide what you want to be when you grow up. And so the first principle is just saving, right? Here's how you do that. We teach people to get a checking account that we're going to label your wealth capture account. And I just want you to go to HR and take 15%, 10%. I don't care what you start with, really. I just care that you start, right? So take 15% and just have that money direct deposit into that account. I don't want no debit card associated with it. You can't pay bills out of it. This is for you to accumulate money so that you can buy or build cash flowing assets. So our emphasis of our practice,
a savings account, not a checking account.
Checking account, because it's not going to stay there. It's going to shift to different places. So right now, this is just a holding tank. And as we get into the practice, we show different places to put the money. So right now, all I'm trying to do is create the habit, that savings muscle. I'm trying to get them to. I had people that as we were working together, we've worked together maybe 2-3 months, and then we start to implement some tactics. And they have, I'm thinking somewhere right now, we started with that, and he had it. So even when he made more money with overtime, he put more money in. And by the time we start implementing some of the things, he had like $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 saved up. He hadn't had that before. And once he got it started, he didn't miss it, and he never had to go into it. Even when stuff got a little tight, but he made it up in his mind that he's going to do this. And then now we're, beginning to I'm having him, he's starting to educate on some other things that he can do with money. So that's principle one. So I know we got like a short period of time, so I'm not going to elaborate on too much. Second principle is, and this is what most people skip, is, and they're in order, right? Maximum protection. Okay. So we call that playing defense. So while you're building your empire, what could derail that? Okay. I just talked to a young guy before we jumped on this call. Well, he was on disability. He got hurt in a car accident. Fortunately, he had disability insurance, so he was able to have his money coming in, because he said, well, what happened? I said, what would have happened if you hadn't had this? I would have to go back to work, but my back is hurt and da. So he got his income insured, right? Most people are underinsured with their liability coverage. So if they were at fault accident, that would be a problem. Do you have replacement costs for your homeowners? Most people should have and don't have an umbrella policy for at least $1 million. You want to look at stuff like that. You want to have your entity set up. You want to have your will set up. If you got young kids, you want to have your trust set up, right? Most people also are underinsured with their life insurance. So we teach the concept of human life value, right? So if you're between 18 and 40, right, the insurance, you take your annual income multiplied by 25. Right? That's how much you can have. I won't say you should have. That's how much they'll let you have, right? If you're between 40 and 50. And so what happens is, so you have to play defense. So everybody wants to skip that step because it's not sexy. The third principle is, we call it legacy, full replacement of assets at death, or what I like to call creating a legacy of wealth, but more importantly, the wisdom to go along with that wealth, right? So have you building an empire? The maximum protection takes care of part of that, but money isn't wealth, right? So what is the intellectual capital of the family? What are you learning? What charities are important to you? So how, we start to teach people to build legacy. This year, we're teach people how to do family retreats, where we teach a system called becoming your own banker. So we show people how to create legacy wealth by creating their own banking system. The fourth principle is liquidity. So we want 6 months to 12 months of your income liquid, right? Now, most of the people that we work with, Patrina, are real estate investors and small business owners, or people that aspire to basically work optional income. Okay, so my process is really geared towards that. And so what happens is I'll talk to, and so what they'll do is they'll listen to Grant Cardone, who I love. They'll say, oh, I stay poor. I roll all my new money when I do a cash out into a new property. I said, well, what happens? Because equity has no rate of return. That's why I tell people, you're not trying to paying off like debt and paying off your house. That's not even in the top 3 things you should even be thinking about the way we teach it. Okay. So that's why I say I may step on toes. But what happens if which has happened where the government made it legal for your tenants not to pay you and you didn't have any money saved up, right? And PPP money, wherever you're supposed to get, to help them get the money, were slow. But the mortgage people still wanted their money. So you have to liquidity. If nothing goes wrong, now when other people don't have liquidity, you've got capital to buy their business, you got capital to gain market share on other people that weren't prepared. So I teach more about provisioning because nobody I know has a working crystal ball. So, and then the fifth principle, maybe we could stop, is velocity. So I teach velocity over accumulation. So our clients focused on, so when I talk about investing, I always ask people if they heard of Warren Buffett. They go, yes. I said, well, have you heard of Benjamin Graham? I go, no. I said, well, Benjamin Graham is Warren Buffett's and Charlie Munger's mentor, right? And in his book, The Intelligent Investor, he says it's the first chapter, he talked about the difference between investing and speculating. And he says an investment is something you put your money into where your principal is safe and you have a reasonable opportunity to make a profit. If it doesn't fit that definition, it's speculating. Now, I'm not saying not speculating. You just need to know what you're doing. So the people I work with, they know just through their business and through their real estate investing, they can make more money than Vanguard. So I teach people to lean into that. Like if you put $1 in your business, you make $2, that's 100% return. And so now you still want to diversify, but diversification in our process is amongst asset classes, right? So the 4 are business, real estate, paper, assets, and commodities. Most people think paper, but paper it's not just stocks, bonds, mutual funds, it's tax liens. I've got clients that buy notes. We've got clients that do private lending. What are those things called? Life settlements. So that's
what I was going to ask you just to get in here. I was going to ask you, so you have the 5 principles of personal finance. Who would you say these types of principles are ideal for? Because as I listen to you talk through each of them, I'm wondering if your client base or those that goes through this process, do they have income of a certain level? Do they have wealth at a certain level? Like, can you?
Yeah, no, I work with people that look like you and I. So that's my target market. So you've got
that definition though.
So the definition is, I would say, well, my clients probably between on the low end household income, 80,000. Okay. And, but see, the main thing is not their income is because see, I don't care if you make $25,000 a year. I want you to save 15% of your income.
No, I think that's easier said, because I being in the space, people that make less than a certain dollar amount doesn't make them right. I'm just saying this is what I come across, and I know a lot of my colleagues do, and I'm wondering if you do, is they can't wrap their head around when they make a certain amount of money of working with somebody where there's an investment to work with them to help them do some of the things that you're mentioning. Mm-hmm. So that's why I asked the question of what's your demographic, because I wish I had the crystal ball, you call it, to be able to, not the crystal ball, but I had the answer to the question as to the why. We often say it's the mindset. Like, people think you need to have a lot of money in order to execute on the financial fundamentals of safekeeping your money, right? So it's like when I hear about think about the clients that at least I come in contact with, those that are probably listening, how do they, what I would love for you to touch on is, you have the 5 principles of personal finance, right? How does one that may not even be at the 80, right? Which I guess that's what you're defining, that is a lower end of a spectrum. How do those that may be less than that, or maybe newer entrepreneurs, maybe have taken the leap and maybe they had a great year, but maybe maybe they haven't sustained that across more than 1 year. How do they understand, or what would you say to them to understand that these 5 principles could be something they incorporate into what they do with their finances?
Right. Okay. Good question. So principles drive strategy, strategy drive tactics. So this is like the 10 commandments. Okay. So this is not optional. Okay. And so when you study, and what you have to do is you've got to start to study people that are where you want to go. Right. But the first thing that I work on with people is, see, most wealth is lost by how people manage cash flow. All right. So
Right.
now when I say 15%, I don't expect them to pull that out their butt. Okay. That's the work. The work is I find the money. Okay. That's what I do. All right. So if I find it, will you save it? So now most wealth is lost by how they manage cash flow. Okay. Right. Because I have a process we teach called cash flow mapping. So we call it, I don't really like budget. I have I don't even have the site up, but I have a free book we give away called Budgeting Stinks. And so we call it Tell Your Money Where to Go instead of asking where it went. Right. Yeah, exactly. And so you're forecasting, right? You just line it up. And, so we try to figure out, because see, they don't know what's what. So they're one account, it's all commingled, and they don't know what, especially with the business owners, like they don't, even with the side business, they don't have separate accounts. They don't know what it costs to run their business. They don't know what it costs. So I coach people on cash flow management. Now, the other thing is, so here's easy ways you can find the money. So one is cash flow management. And I don't focus 3 types of money. So there's accumulated money, there's lifestyle, and then there's transfers. See, most typical financial advice is on accumulated money. How much you got? We can do better. Why don't you give that money to us? So I don't agree with that, right? Because the only person whose money is at risk in that scenario is yours. The second one is lifestyle. Let's stop going to Starbucks. Let's, grow your own food and live in a sackcloth. I'm exaggerating, but but so it's lifestyle. Can you cut back on lifestyle? But then what I find, you mentally suffer from what I call fear-based hoarding. You can't scrimp your way to financial freedom, right? So you need to live within your means, but the more emphasis is focusing on prosperity, which is how do I expand my means? Okay. How do I make more money? Well, how do you make more money? You got to create more value in the marketplace. Money's a result, right? It's a byproduct of service. Now, the other 5 things of where we find the money, it's like 20 wealth transfers. I'm just gonna give you the top 5. How you pay your mortgage, taxes, how you fund retirement plan, how you pay for like kids' educational expenses, and how you pay for big ticket items, what I call major capital purchases. So anything you can't pay for in full within monthly cash flow. So there's more money lost in those 6 things I just named than you'll ever make trying to pick winning investments. So you have a finite amount of money. So the first thing you have to do is, because most people think the key to growing their wealth is investing, finding better investments that pay a higher rate of return. But most of the time, to do that, at least the way it's taught, you have to be all right with taking risks. Well, I view risk as probability of loss, not opportunity for gain. And so I focus on, or the community that, that teaches the way I teach, we focus on efficiency, right? First, right? So there's more opportunity. So if I can show you ways to, so for example, a lot of people are all excited about getting tax refunds. Okay. Refund means your money again. So that means when I hear that, when I look at somebody's personal comment, I was like, okay, did you get a refund last year? Yeah. How much was it? $5,000. I already know your W-4 is filled out wrong, right? And so you have too much withholding. Now, let's say they take your course, they do affiliate marketing. So now they could adjust their withholding. Now they can engage in the strategy called income shifting, right? Which is looking at, now if you're itemizing your stuff, it's like, okay, well, there's a great book by Sandy Bachman called Lower Your Taxes Big Time and Tax-Free Wealth by Tom Wheelwright. And so what happens is there's 2 tax codes. So if you learn how to get in the business owner one, that will minimize your taxes, increase your cash flow so that you can save, right? If people are been trained to get 15-year mortgages, that's a complete waste of money, okay? And or overpaying or sending extra payments. That money could go, because equity has no rate of return. And so if you don't have enough savings, instead of giving it to the bank to try to pay off the house, you probably won't be in 8 years from now. We'd be better served building up your liquidity.
Yeah, I think so I think you're right. I think there's a several rules of thumb in how people think about all the things that you just mentioned. I know, again, I'm not sure. Let me just ask the question in this way. A lot of what you're saying, completely agree with, right? I still think that people need to understand how does it fit them, right? And that's where I believe the I don't want to say the struggle. That's where I believe and why I'm in the space that we're both in, is helping people to understand. Because before I was what I would call who I am now, and Google who I am, Patrina Dixon, find out who that is. I'm not going to spend time there, but I was the
Traditions, all that. That's just look under Google for all that. And her name is going to pop up.
There you go. I was the single mom that, made what I would call a really good living at the time. I earned every single dollar that I made, but I also didn't have the education regarding finances and building wealth and all the things that you said here today. So that content wouldn't have meant anything to me because I didn't think it was for me. Right. So I had to learn by the people that I followed at the time, how to think about my money differently, not how to make more. Because when I was going through the process of trying to think about my finance differently, I was not I did get annual increases in bonus from the company that I was getting them from, but I was not, the change wasn't, I didn't go out and accumulate real estate and start investing, like all of that to change. It was like, I have to think about money differently. So sometimes when I hear people say it's not that reduction in coffee, it's not that whatever, for me, it really was that. Like I had to change, like, why am I going to this establishment? Not that I can't, and not that I didn't continue, but I wasn't doing it as frequently as I was before. Because
that goes back into managing, your cash flow, right?
Yes.
And so I was at I was in a mastermind a couple of months ago, and I know this person made a lot of money. So one of the things he taught us as advisors said, listen, you need to teach people. Like I teach people to have a money date, right?
Yes.
And look, right.
Yes, so that's what I want you to expound.
Right. So what happens is, all right, so first of all, your number one asset, let's go back to this. Let's back up. So how do you learn it? Your number one asset is you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what the first that people say, well, I want to invest, what should you invest in? Your brain. Okay. Yes. So what can you invest in? Specifically, your mindset, what you watch, listen to, hang around and read. Yes. Okay. So our clients have to read a book a month on money. At least, like one on money, one on skills, negotiation, sales, marketing, wherever, depending on your interest. But you have to get, because as investing is not risky, being uneducated is risky. So as your knowledge goes up.
Stop right there. Stop. Because I need you to, because this is where I want you to punctuate.
Okay.
Investing in you
is the number one thing.
Okay. And then go to the next point.
All right. So investing in you, mindset, what you watch, listen to, hang around and read.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Skill set, what you know how to do.
Yes.
Okay. And so can you grow your skill set? That is what allows you to bring in more revenue.
All right. I'm going to just let that marinate. Sometimes you just have to drop and let it marinate, because I think people are rushing to 0.5, 6, and 7.
Yes. Right? I agree with that.
Want that because
but they don't want to do the work. See, the work, because investing is not about buying something. This is what we teach people. It's about becoming, right? So the formula is become, then do, then have. And so becoming is work. See, nobody wants to do that. Okay.
And nobody wants to show that. Let's say that.
So people don't want to. And see, that's because that's not, because the media sells easy.
Yes.
Okay. See, so when I was a kid, I used to, I was a basketball player. So I used to, for some people of a certain age would know the name George Gervin, right? So I always tell young people, Kevin Durant for Kevin Durant, right? So, right. But I read, so Success Leaves Clues. I've always been that way, right? I read George Gervin shot 600 shots a day. Okay. That's a thing. I could do that. Guess what? I end up being one of the best shooters in Philly, but I used to shoot 400, 500, 600 shots a day. So I translate that to business. Now I do the same thing. I translate to anything I want to learn about. There's nothing new under the sun, right? And so it's out there. So I don't want to hear it's out. It used to have to go to the library. Now you just you got a phone that you got more power than President Clinton had. Okay. So what are you using it for, right? Skill set. How are you getting better? You should be working at getting better at something every month, right? You on purpose, right? Not by accident. And then network. Who do you know? Are you getting around people? Or if you're the smartest person in your group, we should start with this, then you need a new group, right? Because that's the mindset. I mean, that's the mental part of the deal. See, because if you hang around broke people, if you hang around 5 broke people, you're going to be the 6th, right?
Yes.
Right. And so you got to get around. I work hard at, this is on purpose. I work hard at getting in better rooms, right? I work hard at being where I'm the dumbest person in the group. Okay. So, cause I don't have I have a tremendous ego, but I don't have an ego about that. Okay. About learning stuff I have an ego because I like to win and it drives me to stay in shape and in a good way. But right. But I will learn from anybody, and I'm endlessly curious.
Yes.
Right. And so I like to figure out why things work. How does this business work? What's their business model? How's this profit? I used to be in a nightclub or the bar business. I'll go to a nightclub and go, I'm counting their money. So how many people on the door? And I know what the rate, because we're in the bar business, so I know the ratio of what a bottle of Bacardi costs and how much they're charging and how much they're making, because they charge you 6 times wherever the bottle costs. So I know that stuff. So every business works like that. So most people don't think about that. Like you have to be intentional about thinking about growth, about personal growth, about financial growth, about profitability, about having I forget what is her name, great I got stolen. This is stolen. So it was a guest on my show. She said, you have a date with your money, right? So I do my profit and loss weekly, right? I do weekly, okay, because I grew up in retail. I need to know my money because I had to see if people
I thought I was doing a lot monthly, because
no, monthly is worst case, okay. But you need to be doing, if you're in business, you got to do it weekly. Right. And then you set your goals. And then, so if you're like, let's say you're doing networking or business, then you're, once you know how to say, listen, so in fact, I've got people that I use to get me on interviews. Right. So I look at what does that cost? And then I look at the results of that. And then I put a monetary and I see, okay, do I want to stop this? Is it working? But if I hadn't been tracking my numbers, I wouldn't know. Or maybe it's time to double down on this. Right. And so a lot of people don't, when you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, financial literacy is accounting. Right. It's the ability to read numbers, right? So the numbers, that's why it goes back to the budget, right? Because the numbers tell a story, and most people are unfamiliar with the story. And so what happens is wealth comes from the balance sheet, your assets, your liabilities. But most middle America focuses on their income statement. I need more overtime. I need to make more money. I need a raise, right? But income is not wealth, right? And so you got to work, save, buy or build assets that generate cash flow, so that when you can't or don't want to, your assets go to work for you.
Yeah. And most people, and I'm being mindful of our appointment time here, most people are, that at least, again, client base, because client bases may be different here, is it's a I know how much I have coming in, meaning I'm pointing to my head here.
Right.
I know how much I get paid. I know how much my employer gives me every 2 weeks or whatever the frequency that they get it. And then I know what I need to pay out. When I remember, I used to pre-pandemic, I used to have in an office, and my clients used to come in person. I literally saw the aha moments when they literally wrote down, nothing changed about their income, nothing changed about their bills, but they had never literally sat down and wrote it on paper, had that money meeting, had that cash flow.
Right. You got to get it out of your head.
Whatever you call it, you got to see it. Yeah. Because that life happens.
Gets done. Yeah, you got to.
Life happens. And what's in your head gets garbled, or the priority level of things changes depending on what just happened in your life.
See, here's the other problem. Jim Rohn says most people don't have a money problem; they have a philosophy problem. Right. So it's only 4 things you can do with $1 when you get it: spend it, save it, invest it, or give it away. Right. So the order of how you do that forms your philosophy. So if you think, here's the problem, here's most of our people, it's I got to work, I got to pay my bills. And if I have any money left over, I'll see if I can save it.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you think that way, hear me, you're going to be poor. Okay. Because that ain't how it works. All right. And so that's why I say becoming is hard. Okay. I'm not saying it's easy. Okay. But it's easier than being broke. All right. And so you can have, you can have the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. You choose. And so but if you, and I don't have to be 15%. I don't care if it's 5%. So the amount doesn't matter. It's the habit.
It doesn't. I often tell clients when I teach this, because you're absolutely right, savings at the top. I actually have some YouTube shorts on this one, and it's that when you earlier talked about having money go directly into an account. So those that work for employers, you can have your money sliced in different ways,
Yeah.
so that you're not making that conscious decision every time. To your point, you
Right.
should automatically have some going into a high yield savings account, and that may
Because
start
willpower doesn't work. You got to automate it. Doesn't work.
exactly.
Doesn't
But
work.
oftentimes clients get really zealous and say, "Oh, I'm going to go and change, Miss Patrina. I'm going to have $100 go into that savings." And I tell them, no, don't do that, because if you do that, for those that I work with, if you start with that 100, I'm just using a round out, maybe it's a percentage, maybe it's higher, and you've never done it before, and you are new to this cash flow management process, money meaning, then what happens is then you transfer 20 and you transfer 40 because you weren't ready for that 100 really to go. You just had a good week and you're happy that you made the investment in yourself to work with me, or you've been in a room that I was teaching in.
Yeah.
I want you to start with the 20. I do want you to start with the 20. Then I want you to increase it to 40. And then I want you to increase it and have that number, the trajectory of that go upward and not be transferred back in to spend or to pay a bill.
Yeah, I like them to do at least 10. Like, so this is why the richest man in the
but
whatever is the thing is, listen, I don't care. I had people that would spend through. I said, listen, can you do $25 a pay? I mean,
yes.
And this person worked for the city of Philadelphia, and they just was spendthrifts. I mean, she, so I said, all right, just what can you do? And and then I would check in every quarter. All right, so now how you doing? And then see what happens is once you get the habit and you start seeing a little bit of money accumulating, you find you're not having to go into it, then it gets good to you.
Yes.
And then you can start to expand it. You know what I mean? So you got, but it goes, because your attitude is starting to change, you realize, okay, I can pay myself first, right? And then now here's what you do. Now you got that going. So now, because what are you saving for? So you're not saving just to be saving. You can't save your way to financial freedom, right? So, Jim Rohn would say, this is why I would teach the kids, right? Profits are better than wages, right? Wages make you a living, profits make you a fortune. I go, what's the profit? I said, we see the people that sell water on the street. I said, well, how much does a case of water cost? $5. How many in a case? $24. You get from your savings, you take $5 and go buy the water. So now you sell each one for $1. What did you make? A $24 gross profit, a net profit of 19. Now you replace another case, but now what do you do with that money? You add it to your savings. See, that's a business. It's not, people think it's, I gotta get a business plan. No, it's not much harder than that.
That's right.
Right. And they complicate it. And then you'll have these academics, well, you need a business plan. No, you don't. Okay. You need to find something that people want. Find it at
solution.
Find a solution. See, so a business is three things. It's a customer, it's a mechanism, like a process, and a result. And people buy, it doesn't have to be your mechanism. Okay. And it could be somebody else's software. It could be somebody else's book, whatever you good that with, like there's a book I use called Money for Life. And I know the author, and he says, look, I teach the concepts better than him. So I communicated. So, but he wrote the book. I actually may rewrite it with him, but but that speaks to what I want to teach, and I just got into it, and I'm good at communicating stuff. So it's and I like it. It was his book, but I'm good at, I can make your thing my thing, right? And communicate it, and so it solves a problem. But the result is what people want. So what's the result? I talk to people about. I help teach principles so what's the result? Financial freedom is what you want. See, so there's different ways to get there. You got to be clear on what you want. I was on the phone with a guy who was like, yeah, I'm gonna do real estate. And I said, well, what do you think I should do? I said, what do you want? That's, I don't know what you should do yet. I mean, it's like, what do you want and why? See, most people can't answer that. Right. They don't know why. Right. Yes. That's hard for people. They don't know why. I just want to be better off. I just want to be comfortable. What does that mean?
What does that even mean? Exactly right. So Curtis, Mr. Matt, we can probably go on and on. Like when you get to people that have a passion of personal finance, like conversations can be elongated.
Yes.
It's just so that this is an example for those of you listening. When you are passionate about what you do, it never feels like work. You get paid for doing what you love doing. So I tell you, if you're looking for a side hustle, think about why you want to do it, to both of our points here. And then what are you passionate about? are you skilled in something that also has a passion that is a solution? And that's actually how I got started. It's personal finance, because I started in high schools. Personal finance is not consistently taught in high schools in the United States. And my goal was, I want to be the solution that schools call upon to augment what they have going on. And that's basically how I got started. I wrote a book and then I started teaching
Augment, they ain't got nothing going on.
Well, some do.
Right.
That's why I say not.
Okay.
Even within my, I'm trying to work to get it required in our state. Michigan just did drop theirs, but I have gone to within our state. I live in Connecticut that actually have a program.
Oh, great.
But usually like a course, but it's an elective. It's not required. So sometimes they have me come in to that particular class and be a speaker. They get my book. My book is called "It's My Money," which is my trademark brand. So I feel like I like to share that, and it sounds like you have the same passion for what you do and helping people. I call it the Practical Wealth Show podcast. Like, that's the name of his podcast. He's the president of Practical Wealth Solutions. So you want to, when you, like the two of us, have a passion, and then you also can find a way to monetize it. It's just music. It's just beautiful. Right. It can contribute to the wealth.
And none of that was planned, right? It kind of Renault's. I didn't come out and built all this stuff. It kind of grew. I didn't know I was good at communicating stuff. And when I went to my church, you're not using your gifts. Like, what gift is that? So you should be speaking.
And that's what my book did. My book turned into workshops, turned into speaking engagements. So you're exactly right. Yeah. So if Mr. May, if you were to give the listeners 2 tips to walk away with, what would those 2 tips be? And what should their desired results be based on the tips you're sharing? So
tip number 1, I kind of said it, but I'm going to make sure you leave with this, is pay yourself first, right? Create a wealth capture account, create a separate checking account, and take a percentage of every check. If you're in business, then you got to do it manually. You got to sweep it, but you got to pay yourself first. Okay. The business is there to create wealth for you. So that if you never see me again, if you do that, that will change your life. Okay. The second thing I would say is to read and if you email me, I'll send you my list, but read a book a month on money, at least. Okay. And autobiographies of people. Like, success leaves clues. So if you read Buffett's book, you read, people that are like where you want to be at, right? Like, that you're studying, and you break it down, you read with a highlighter and with the journal, and you got to think about the stuff. It's not a Harlequin romance. I mean, these books are like, you need to build a library where you're looking at stuff like, over and over again, and go back to it for reference. I always look on my desk. I always have like 4 books open, because depending on what I'm thinking about, I'm doing that, and I'm either thinking about a lesson, I'm trying to get something across to a client, or how can I make this simpler, right? So read, leaders are readers, right? And pay yourself first.
Pay yourself first, a book a month. You heard Mr. Curtis May here. And how can they find you if they, after hearing this wonderful conversation, they want to find you? Where would they find them?
Yeah. So if you want more of the madness that is Curtis, so check out the Practical Wealth Show podcast, and or our YouTube channel. And well,
what is it? What's your
just go to YouTube and search for the Practical Wealth Show, and I'll come up, and then subscribe to that. And I have a report. If you don't mind, I'll give them that they can get.
Yeah, and if you have a link to it, I can drop it in the show notes.
Yeah, so they can text. I'll send it to you, but they can text. Which is what? Be the Bank to 55444, and the report is called The Value of Liquidity. So I'm big on liquidity.
Okay, awesome. So thank you all for being here again. I call my community the squad. Thank you, the squad, for being here today with Curtis May and I, talking through the 5 principles of personal finance. I hope once again through this episode that you walk away with things that you actually can execute on today. So it's wonderful that you tune in all the time that you do, but remember, this year is about intention and execution. So make sure that you're intentional about what you're doing, and you execute, even if it's on one thing, you execute on something that you heard here today. And if you have not subscribed, make sure you go ahead and do that, or follow me wherever you're listening. If you enjoyed today's show, leave us a review, because the algorithm on these platforms like reviews. So I'm going to go ahead and just put it out there, the call to action. Leave a review. Let us know what you thought about the show. I appreciate you for doing that. And if you enjoyed, make sure you share the episode with somebody that may benefit from what you heard here today. Thanks again for being here with Patrina Dixon, the It's My Money Lady. Make it a great day.